All right, welcome to the lesson on how to solve proportions using cross products. First, let's define what a proportion is. A proportion is an equation that states two ratios are equal. From there, we can take the idea that in a proportion, for example, 2 over 3 equals 4 over 6, we could say that the products of 2 and 6, so 2 times 6, and 3 times 4 are cross products. Notice that they are equal. 2 times 6 equals 12, and 3 times 4 also equals 12. That shows you that this is in fact, a proportion. Okay, so if we need to find out if something is proportional, we are going to use the cross products. So in this case, the 3 and the 20, which 3 times 20 equals 60, and the 4 and the 15, which in this case 4 times 15 equals 60. And because these are equal, we can conclude that these two ratios are in fact proportional. All right, so let's look at some examples on how to solve proportions when we have an unknown number by using cross products. So the first example I have is 5 over 10 is equal to x over 16. So you need to remember to multiply across. We can do this two different ways. Okay. I know in the past you have learned a little rhyme called crisscross multiply. So in this case 5 times 16, and then divide by the lonely guy, which is 10. Okay, so we could do that. So we could just do 5 times 16 over 10. So 5 times 16 is 80. And then 80 divided by 10 would just be 8. Okay, so we could do it that way. Or I'm going to show you an algebraic way of doing it, just because when we get into more complicated problems later on in this video, you will understand what I'm talking about. So in this case, I'm just going to crisscross multiply. I'm going to do 5 times x. I'm going to write this out. 5 times x equals 2 times 8. And then I'm just going to solve. So 5x equals 16. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. So I'm going to say x is equal to, we could either say 16 over 5, I can keep it in this form, or I can divide it to get the decimal of 3 and 2/10 or 3.2. Okay, so this is the kind of old-fashioned rhyme way, and then this is the more algebraic way, which is you're going to see a lot of. Okay. All right, so let's apply this cross product idea with a word problem. So it says if you can buy 2 heads of cabbage for $1.80, how many can you buy for $28.80? So I'm going to set up a proportion. So I have 2 heads of cabbage that cost $1.80. And I want to know how many heads of cabbage I can buy, so my unknown, for $28.80. Okay. All right, so I'm going to write this out algebraically. Sorry about my bad handwriting. So I'm just going to put 1.8 because 1.80 is the same thing. X equals 2 times 28.8. All right, so 2 times 28.8 is 57.6. So I'm going to do 57.6 equals 1.8x. divide by 1.8, divide by 1.8. So x is going to equal 32. So how many heads of cabbage can I buy for $28.80? I can buy 32. All right, so I set up the proportion, solved for x, figured out my answer. Okay, so I'm just going to show you now a more complicated problem with the same idea. So our original proportion is 4 over x equals 8 over x minus 3. So this is where it's going to get a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to show you step by step on what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to cross multiply. So we're doing 4 times x minus 3. Notice that x minus 3 is in parentheses because it is one idea in this particular case. And then we're doing 8 times x. From here, I'm just going to make it into a simple algebra problem. So I am going to use the distributive property. I'm going to get my arrows popping. 4 times x equals 4x. 4 times negative 3 equals negative 12. And then x times 8 is just 8x. And then I'm just going to simplify. So I am going to subtract 4x to the other side. So minus 4x, 8x minus 4x equals 4x. I have negative 12. Don't forget to carry your negative sign down. Divide by 4, and x would equal negative 3. Okay, we're going to do one more example like that. So I have x plus 1 over 3 equals 7 over 2. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to go 2 times x plus 1 equals 7 times 3. I know that 7 times 3 equals 21. And then I'm going to get my arrows popping. So 2 times x equals 2x, and 2 times 1 equals positive 2. I'm going to solve my equation here. So subtract 2 from both sides. That gets crossed out. So I end up with 2x equals 21 minus 2 is 19. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. I can either turn this into a decimal, or I'm just going to take the easy way because it's actually more exact than trying to figure out a decimal. I'm going to do 19 over 2. I can't simplify it, so x equals 19 over 2. All right, so that's what I have for proportions. The second part of our video is just to take the idea of a proportion and apply it to a similar figure and scale drawings. So it's very simple. You just need to know the rules here. So we know that similar figures have the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. So for example, if I were to look at these two triangles, they're the same shape, okay? Meaning that my angles, my corresponding angles are the same, but that my sides are proportional. So if I were to pick two sides and set up a proportion, so let's say 6 over 9, because those are my corresponding parts, so 6 over 9, and I'm going to equal that to, let's say, 10 over 15. Notice that I have the smaller triangle both on top and the bigger triangle both on bottom. And then I'm just going to cross multiply. So 9 times 10 is 90, and 6 times 15 is 90. So since they both equal 90, I can assume that they are in fact proportional, so they are similar. Okay, so we can use this idea to find missing parts of a triangle. So in this case, we want to find what x is. So I'm going to set up a proportion. So my two corresponding sides that I have information about are the 2 feet and the 5 feet. So I'm going to set up a ratio there. So I'm going to go 2 over 5 equals, and then the side that corresponds to x is this 3 right here. So I'm going to put 3 on top. The reason I'm going to put 3 on top is because it goes with the 2 because it's on the same triangle. And then x is going to go on bottom. And then I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to go 2x equals 5 times 3, so 15. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X is going to equal either 15 over 2, or I could say 7.5 feet. All right, so what we can conclude about similar figures is that the corresponding angles are equal or congruent, and the lengths of the corresponding sides are proportional. So, just to recap on what we talked about in this lesson, I know this was a longer video. Um, we learned information about proportions, how to solve more complicated proportions with algebraic expressions in them, and then how to solve for unknowns in similar figures. All right, so bring any questions you might have to class tomorrow. Otherwise, thank you.